Hi, welcome along everyone. Today going to look at bleed valves, these little things here. Okay, they go in the end of your radiator, and it seems quite a lot of you are having problems. Well, this time of year obviously heating's on, you get air in a radiator, you need to bleed it, and you're going to the rad and finding that that little key in there doesn't work, it's rounded off. Here then we have a really old radiator, and as you can see the air valve is in there. It looks pretty rounded off. Probably had a tough job trying to get that out of there. So the thing is that a lot of people don't realise you can actually remove this whole plug. It'll all come out of the radiator and you can renew the whole thing, which is a job I'm going to show you in a second. So even if you've got an old rad like this, you can get that out of there. It will be tougher than normal, but there are keys made for the job, and this is it here. It's a key, it's got a little hole in the end of it, you can see it there, and that's so that it will fit over the air screw like that and fit inside the rad, and then it enable you to turn it out. It hasn't got much leverage on it, so you'll probably find you need a bar, extension bar to go on this, okay, to get a bit of leverage, but it is the job. It does normally get them out of there. So without further ado, we'll go to showing you how to do an easy one first off. Then we have our radiator. Now this is obviously just a plug in here. I'm just going to show you how easy this is to do. If you'd like to pretend and use your imagination that this is that worn out looking thing I've just showed you a picture of, with the air valve that's all rotten and won't turn, and how easy it's going to be to do this. But if you've got this type of rad with a square like this, these are the easiest ones to do. So with these you don't even need that special key I showed you, you just need a spanner. First things first then, an old towel I always use, a little container, because there'll be a little drop of water, not much, but where the rad has to level off with the water when you take the plug out, there will be a little bit there. So I always use a little container, a towel for any overspill. Now this is a thermostatic valve, you've probably got the same, just turn it all the way until it stops. That is now off. So now we need to attend to the other end.
What do you do if you haven't got a thermostatic rad valve?
Well, if it's an ordinary turn one, just turn it all the way until it stops.
Right, I've got another question. Would you just turn that rad valve off there that's in line with the bleed valve that you're going to sort out?
No, we want that one and the other one off at the other end of the radiator, which is usually a lock shield valve type on the other end. If you come up to the other end of the radiator, you'll see the other valve. Now on my particular one I've got a turn valve, that's my preference because I don't like lock shields, but normally you have a lock shield valve. It may have a screw in the top which you'll have to undo first, but pull the cap off. Once it's off, we're ready to go turn this off. So we've got to turn this one off as well. All you've got to do is memorise the amount of turns that it goes off, and remember that you've got to turn it the same amount back on, because it's probably balanced the system. So it's usually not on a lot, most one isn't for me, I know. There you go, I'm only not even quite half a turn. That's all it needs. This rad is now off.
So by turning that off, you've stopped the water going to it, and that one is what's balancing it, so that allows a certain amount of water in because it might be closer to the boiler or further away.
That's the one, that's it.
I'm learning.
You're getting it. As I was saying earlier, on our pretend this is a broken drain-off valve, this one is a plug type that's kind of external, makes it very, very easy to do. So if you've got steel rads, which this one is, they're usually of this type, which means it's very, very easy because it's just a small spanner on there. I've adjusted it up and just give it a turn. They come out very, very easy, these ones. Makes life an absolute doddle to do. And we'll get him out. It's got a little washer in there. Once we break the seal out, you should start to get a little bit of water coming out now. Can you see it? Running down the rad. We just got to let that come out and equalise a little bit. And then once it's out enough, we'll change the plug over. That's why we want our little bowl underneath, because a little bit of water's got to level off to this height here in the radiator.
That's a nifty tool you've got there, Al.
Oh, this little spanner is one of those really cheapy things from a pound shop. Although it actually wasn't a pound, it was $4.95. Cheapskate, anyway.
Only you can spend more money in a pound shop than a pound.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those almost a pound shops. So as I undo that now, you'll see that level out of there now. See the water levelling out? That's what's in the rad, and it's levelling off. We've got to let that bit out, which is why we've got our container underneath to catch it. Let that lot come out, and then we'll be ready to put our plug in. There you are, it's levelled off finally. Just see the last bit of water coming out through there now. So we're ready to put our new valve in. As you can see, there it is. It always comes usually with a rubber washer like so. That one's a little bit dodgy there. Let's pull that odd bit off. If there's any bits like that, take it off. So we've got a rubber washer. If not, use a bit of PTFE tape around it if there isn't a rubber washer on there, okay? Otherwise, it's ready to go straight in. Just line it up, get it in. Doesn't need to be too tight, these. We've got a nice rubber seal washer on there. I mean, I'm going to have to put this back when I'm finished. I've obviously already got a bleed valve on the other end. But, I've got one of those automatic ones actually that auto do it. I've got a video on those ones. Okay, now there we are, job done. Before we go to our valves, I should say, make sure this is off first, okay? Make sure the little air screw is off, otherwise you'll turn it on and it will start bleeding up and coming straight out. So before we turn it on, it's got to be off.
How do you know it's off?
It just stops, you can't do it anymore.
So towards you?
Yeah, it's towards me in this instance.
Clockwise?
Clockwise, anti-clockwise on, clockwise off.
Right, and that'll stop it all pouring out.
First back on is our lock shield again. Spanner, back on. I know this was only sort of kind of half a turn, so it wasn't a lot. It's around about there somewhere. That's it. I'm going to put this back on. I've got a turn cap on mine just because I don't like lock shields messing about with screws and things. That's that one. On with our thermostatic end. I always have it up full because it's a bathroom one. I like as much heat in here as possible. Before I bleed the radiator, just one thing concerning radiator keys, okay? This salt, cheap and nasty, usually burr over, can cause even more problems with the end of the bleed valve if it's, you know, a natty horrible one. Always get a good quality brass key, okay, that's good made well, not from a pound shop. Okay, you've got to get a plumbing shop one that's good quality, and then you find you won't round off those heads of those bleed nipples. That's quite an important one, I think. And now with that, we're going to just bleed this radiator. So here we go. You just use a bit of tissue or something like that to bleed it with. Open it up and it's there straight away. See the flow? But obviously it was already levelled off. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the job how to change a radiator bleed valve. Now obviously if you have a combi boiler, do go and check the pressure. It shouldn't really have lost barely anything, but do just check and make sure, because if your pressure is very close to the knuckle, so to speak, it might just be enough to stop it working. So if you have lost a little bit of pressure, just top that back up first.
And what should it read?
Between 1.2 and 1.5 bars. About where that gauge is now.
Ah, good.
So now you're saying, what if I can't undo this? Or what if this isn't the type of rad I've got, it's an old type and that valve screws straight into the radiator without one of these? What do I do then? Yeah, that's the really tricky part, isn't it? Well, you can try and get that nipple out. If it comes out, it will help, because you may find if you buy one of those little nipple valves I've showed you from the plumber shop, the thread just might be the same and it might fit back in there. You might be lucky. It's worth trying. Okay, but if it really won't come out, that's going to have to be drilled out. The only way I can describe this job is the worst in the world, because you've got to drill through that nipple there and drill right through with a drill, high-speed drill. It's brass, it's not too bad, and drill right into the radiator. But you're going to find, even if you've got the nipple, it may well be then too big a hole, the thread's too big. You've ruined the thread drilling it through. So the only thing to do then is a tap and die set, and tap a hole through there and thread it with a tap and die and use a bolt. People say use a bolt, but yeah, use a bolt for that thread. And all you've got to do is wind some PTFE tape around the bolt thread and then screw it back in where that nipple was. And that's the only way I've ever been able to do it and find an answer to it. Obviously every time you unscrew it and put it back in, the PTFE tape might well want replacing a bit, but it would take a good few turns before it wanted replacing. And as you know how to turn it off and isolate it now, you can do that. At the end of the day, there's not many other ways to cure this problem. You can spray WD on there, WD-40, it might help as well, get it out. But if you can get that nipple out, that's half the thing done. You may find, as I say, that one of those valves, that little valve might fit. You might be lucky. Unfortunately, the older the rad is, the more different the threads were on those little nipples that go in there. Just one of those problems. But there's one last problem, rad, that we really hit that is a kind of impossibility. So let me show you that one. Well, this is the worst nightmare rad in the world. I would advise anybody buying rads to make sure that you haven't got a nipple that is there on a radiator, the bleed nipple there, because unfortunately if they go, there's no way you can drill it because you can't get a drill straight on. You really are stuck. You can't even get a tap and die in here because there's not enough room. And if that isn't bad enough, that the bleed valve for the other end of the radiator, if you follow my finger up here, is on the back of here. Oh, you won't even get the camera around there. It's there. So it's sort of kind of very impossible, you can just see it, to do anything with it if it's gone. I'm afraid if you've got this type of rad with these bleed valves on there, you might as well change the radiator. But at least you could change it for a rad with normal bleed valves on the ends. There we are then, just a brief thing about radiator bleed valves. So that's the one with the hole in it I was telling you about. It goes over the bleed nipple. This one is different again, it doesn't. It's got a smaller shank because some of those valves have got a smaller thread again, you know, to get the spanner into, to get that bloody thing out of there. So this one comes with two sizes, but generally that is the size, this one, to get those out. But just to show you, unfortunately, we can still get caught out because they might slightly be a different size and the hex key still won't fit. Just to make it a little bit more of a nightmare job. One us plumbers hate. We've been round, do a job, you finish the central heat and you go around to bleed the radiators and find half the rads, the bleed valves won't work. So it's a nightmare for us as well. Okay, well that's about it. Just wanted to show you that one because I was asked about it primarily and I think I haven't done a video on that, so there you are. Okay, hope that helps you out. All my stuff, you know where to go, Derek and 33. Thanks for watching everybody, bye bye.